So, a few days ago, I posted a video about the whole YouTube demonetization fiasco. I called it YouTube is a monopsony, and I discussed monopsonies and monopolies and so forth and so on. Now, this channel is called Coach Red Pill, and that means that I'm supposed to give you life lessons of different varieties. So in this episode, I'm going to be discussing the whole YouTube demonetization fiasco and the lessons that you ought to take away from it. Now, the first lesson, it's the overriding lesson to be learned. Never depend on any one source for your income, all right? Now, that source of income gets taken away and you're basically shit out of luck. Look at content creators. They all depended on ad revenue, and when YouTube cut off the money spigot, they were fucked hard in the ass with no lube. I mean, that was likely not fun to most of them, although probably some enjoyed it, but that's for another video. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't depend on just one source of revenue. Now, if you can't help it, say if you have like a full-time job, okay, and it's your only source of revenue and it takes up all of your time, well, then do two things. Now, the first thing that you should be doing is you always want to have your CV updated. And you always want to be taking meetings with other companies, competitors of the firms you work with or whatever. Always be taking meetings. Always be taking meetings with headhunters. Yeah. And if something comes along that's better than what you currently have, you grab it with both hands and you don't let go. See, because don't think of loyalty to the firm that you're working for. They're not going to be loyal to you. So don't be foolish enough to be loyal to them. All right. Now, that's the first thing that you should do if you have a full-time job. The second thing that you should be doing, if you have a single source of revenue and there's no other way around it, is you always want to be doing something on the side that earns you just a little bit of money. Yeah. And you wanted something that you can ramp up. Something trivial on the side. Say, for instance, you do a little woodworking. Yeah. And your neighbor found out and he liked your woodworking enough that he commissioned, you know, a kitchen table and a few chairs. Well, keep up that little business, that little side business that you do on the weekends. Say you work for a big accounting firm, but another neighbor, you know, hired you to do his taxes or whatever. Keep up that side business. You see, it's something trivial that you do on the side. It doesn't matter how much money you make of it. Just keep it up. If you have like a full-time job that you can't get away with. Because that way, see, if you lose your job, it'll be something that you can dedicate your time to, and potentially you can ramp it up and earn more money from it, okay? Now, if you don't have a full-time job, if you're a freelancer or a contractor or something like that, now, then you never want to have the one big client. Okay, remember the story of Walmart in the video? The story of Walmart and the guy who made the heart-shaped boxes? The guy had the one big client, Walmart. And when Walmart made conditions that made it impossible to continue, he lost his business, see? Don't put yourself in that position, okay? So what you want to be doing is you want to have 3, 4, 5 different clients, none of whom individually has more than, say, 25% of your business. That way, if you lose the client that has 25% of your business, you're still going to be left with the 75% of your business. You see what I mean? It's not going to be pleasant to lose 25% of your client base. It's not going to be pleasant to lose 25% of your revenue, but it's better than losing 100% of your revenue. You see what I'm saying? So always have multiple clients. Never be beholden to the one big client, because if you have the one big client, eventually you will be that one big client's slave, and they will do whatever they want with you, including chewing you up and spitting you out. Don't put yourself in that position. The other thing, whether you have a full-time gig or you're a contractor freelancer, and this is the most important lesson from the whole YouTube fiasco, you always, always, always want to be putting away at least a quarter of your net pay the second you get it. At least a quarter every single time. Okay, that's the biggest lesson of them all. See, because a lot of these content creators, they started making the big bucks. I mean, some of these guys make over $10,000 a month, and sometimes a lot more than that, okay? Now, These guys with that kind of revenue, they got used to living high on the hog. They figured that this gravy train would last forever until all of a sudden it got cut. And what had happened to them? These guys were blowing all their money. Okay? Some of it legitimately. Sometimes a lot of these guys, hired staff and had new equipment, and they were spending the money wisely. They weren't buying Lambos or some shit like that. Okay? They were building their business, or so they thought. But they weren't saving. And so when the money got cut because YouTube is a monopsony, what happened to them? They were left, they got fucked. Up the ass hard with no lube once again, okay? Now, you say to me that you can't save a quarter of your income because you have an apartment, you have car payments, you have student loan payments, blah, 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 blah. I call bullshit on all those excuses. Okay, if you can live on 100, you can live on 75. It's not that much of a sacrifice. You say you can't afford to save 25% of your paycheck because of your apartment. Well, then move to a smaller place. Move to a place that's not so expensive. Maybe it's a little bit less nice, but it'll be nice enough. Okay? You say that you can't save 25% because of your car payments. Buy a used car instead of a new one. And if you're already driving a used car and the car payments are too much, then buy a shittier used car. It doesn't matter. It's just a car to get you to where you have to go. Okay? Don't think about impressing people. Don't think that you have to project an image. You'd be surprised how little people notice on that. Okay? At best, they notice if you're well dressed. Nice clothes are far cheaper than an expensive car. Okay? Now, about saving a quarter of your salary, see, it's smart for the following reason. Say you work at a firm for 3 years. During those 3 years, you're saving a quarter of your salary, right? So by the end of those 3 years, you have a year's worth of living expenses saved up, which would be nice because, see, you got fired after 3 years from your job for whatever reason. They downsized, they didn't like you, you smelled, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, if you save a quarter of your salary every month and lose your job after 3 years, you will have saved enough money to live for an entire year without worrying about how you're going to pay rent or food or your usual expenses. See? That's what you get from saving a quarter of your salary. You get peace of mind, okay? Because you were smart enough to save when the money was flowing. And when it gets cut off, you'll have a whole entire year to find a new job, a new source of revenue, and you'll be fine. Think about it in those terms. That's why saving a quarter of your net pay is so important. Okay? Don't stick it in stocks and bonds. Believe me, trust me on this one. Stocks and bonds and playing the market are a fool's game. It's just like going to the casino. The casino always wins. That means you will lose. So don't do that. Just stick it under the mattress, in a bank, in a safe. It doesn't matter, but don't play with it. Okay, just put it away and forget about it. Okay, now the final mistake to avoid that content creators fell into is that they humanized YouTube. They thought that YouTube was their friend. Okay, but YouTube was never their friend. YouTube was simply a company that found it beneficial for a time to share their ad revenue with content creators. They found it beneficial for a time to share that revenue with with content creators until finally they discovered that they didn't need the ad creators anymore and so cut their money. Okay? That's what happened with YouTube. YouTube was never their friends. YouTube was only chasing eyeballs, and they figured that paying content creators was the way to get eyeballs. Now that they have the eyeballs, they don't need content creators as much. They don't need to pay them as much. But these moron content creators thought that, YouTube was their buddy because they got, maybe they got like a jacket or a sticker or some shit like that from YouTube. And they call themselves YouTubers. I'm a YouTuber. No, they're not. They're private contractors, and their primary client, fuck them. Okay? Now, of course, you as a working person, whether it be in a company or on your own as a freelancer, you have clients, you have bosses, you have people around you that you work with. You want to be friendly with them. Of course you do. You want to go out and get a beer with them. You want to send them a birthday card or whatever. Of course you do. That's perfectly natural and many times necessary. But never confuse friendliness with being friends. See, because even the friendliest guy will not hesitate to fuck you over if it's to his benefit. So don't be a fool, okay? These people aren't your friends. Because remember the words from The Godfather, you know? It's just business, Michael. It's nothing personal. Hi, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Thank you.